For centuries, maps have shown lands and cities that, honestly, never even existed. We're talking about capitals of mighty empires that just vanished without a trace, islands that would pop up and then disappear on the horizon, and kingdoms described in such vivid detail that you'd swear they had to be real. Except, well, maybe they weren't. Explorers risked everything to find these places. Governments wrote them down as fact. But what if it was all just a big mistake? Or even crazier, what if it was just a really good story? Today, we're diving into the historical places that, let's be real, probably never existed at all. Atlantis. When it comes to lost civilizations, nothing beats Atlantis. An advanced maritime empire, amazing technology, perfect architecture, a utopian society, until, poof, it all sinks beneath the waves in a single day. It's the ultimate lost city, right? But here's the thing. There's absolutely zero evidence that Atlantis ever existed. The story starts around 360 BC, when Plato first mentions Atlantis in his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, but he never said it was real. Atlantis was a philosophical allegory, a made-up story to show what happens when a society gets too proud and arrogant. The problem? Plato was a fantastic storyteller, and by the 19th century, some people started treating his tale like it was a real, lost civilization. Writers like Ignatius Donnelly ran with it, and suddenly, Atlantis could be anywhere. The Mediterranean, Antarctica, the Americas, even off the coast of the Bahamas. None of those theories ever panned out. And what does science say? Geologists, oceanographers, archaeologists, they all agree. There's no way a whole continent could just sink without a trace. The ocean floor just doesn't work like that. But still, the legend of Atlantis never really left our imagination. Shangri-La. Imagine a hidden valley between snow-capped mountains, a place where time slows down. People live in peace, untouched by war or aging. That's Shangri-La, a perfect, unreachable refuge that lives in our imagination. And it all started with a novel. In 1933, British author James Hilton published Lost Horizon. In the story, a plane crashes in the Himalayas, and the survivors are rescued by Tibetan monks who lead them to Shangri-La, a secret city full of wisdom and near immortality. The book was a hit, and the name Shangri-La quickly became shorthand for paradise. But here's the thing. Shangri-La was never a Tibetan myth. It was a literary invention. Hilton was inspired by esoteric ideas like Shambhala, which is a spiritual concept in Tibetan Buddhism, not a real place. Shangri-La, with its name and imagery, came entirely from Hilton's imagination. Still, the world believed it. Explorers searched for Shangri-La in valleys across Tibet, China, and Nepal. The Chinese government even renamed a town Shangri-La in the early 2000s to boost tourism. Today, people pose for pictures at the Shangri-La gate, not realizing they're standing in the middle of a geographical fiction. Even without historical roots, Shangri-La endured. During the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt named his presidential retreat Shangri-La. It's now called Camp David. El Dorado. Picture this. An entire city covered in gold, shimmering temples, sunlit streets, and rivers where golden dust floats like magic. To the Spanish conquistadors, this wasn't just a fantasy. It was El Dorado, and they were willing to cross jungles, deserts, and mountains to find it. The obsession started in the 16th century when explorers heard indigenous legends about a king who covered himself in gold dust before diving into a sacred lake. This ceremony really happened among the Muisca people in Colombia, but the Spanish took the story and blew it up into something much bigger, a whole city made of gold. From then on, the world went wild. Expeditions launched from everywhere. Conquistadors like Gonzalo Pizarro, Francisco de Orellana, and even the British explorer Walter Raleigh spent years searching. Some died, others never came back. No one found El Dorado, but that didn't stop the search. Every failure sparked a new rumor. El Dorado is further north, behind that mountain, under that lake. Hope was fueled by greed and the blank spaces on the map. Centuries later, scientists like Alexander von Humboldt retraced those paths and came to the obvious conclusion. There's no lost city of gold in South America. Lake Guatavita, tied to the legend, was even dredged by colonizers. All they found were a few small artifacts. No treasure. Still, El Dorado lived on. Camelot. If you grew up on stories about brave knights, noble kings, and magical swords, then Camelot is probably burned into your imagination. It's the capital of King Arthur's realm, home of the Knights of the Round Table. A place where courage was everything, justice ruled, and magic, well, it was just kind of hanging out in the background. But what if I told you Camelot never existed? Not that it wasn't like the legends say, but that it literally never existed. Here's the wild part. Camelot doesn't even come from ancient times. Its first appearance is in a French poem from the 12th century, Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart. The author, Chrétien de Troyes, was just a court poet making up a romantic story, so Camelot wasn't even in the earliest King Arthur tales. It was a later invention, pure fiction. And yet, over time, it somehow started to feel real. For centuries, people tried to track down Camelot among real castles in Britain, Cadbury Castle, Caerleon, Tintagel, you name it. But there's not a single piece of archaeological evidence, no foundations, no inscriptions, nothing. Still, Camelot stuck around. It became a symbol, inspiring books, movies, and even presidents. Remember how JFK's administration was called Camelot? All because the myth was just that powerful. Camelot never existed, but that never stopped anyone from dreaming about it. The Lost City of Zez. In 1925, a British explorer named Percy Fawcett entered the Amazon, convinced he'd find an ancient city as advanced as Mesopotamia. He called it Zez, and, get this, he was never seen again. The legend started with Portuguese colonial documents and indigenous stories about stone ruins deep in Brazil. Fawcett believed these pointed to a lost civilization, and he believed it so much he brought his teenage son along, setting off with barely any supplies and no intention of coming back empty-handed. The result? Silence. No letters, no clues, no body. Fawcett vanished, and the myth only grew. For decades, adventurers followed his path. Some disappeared, others came back empty-handed. Newspapers, magazines, even the British military speculated. Did Fawcett find the city, or did the jungle swallow him whole? Here's the twist. We now know the Amazon was home to complex societies, like the Kikuyu culture, with organized roads and homes. But these weren't stone cities, and they didn't match Fawcett's grand vision. Z probably never existed, at least not the way he imagined. What did exist was the colonial desire to find something as glorious as ancient Egypt or Rome, hidden in the jungle. Agartha. Forget lost continents under the sea. Agartha goes even further. It's said to be an entire civilization living inside the earth, not in caves, but in vast underground cities lit by an internal sun, connected by secret tunnels that stretch across the planet. Welcome to the heart of the Hollow Earth theory. According to believers, Agartha is home to a superior race, wise and ancient. They supposedly retreated from the surface after ancient disasters, and now they live in hiding, quietly watching over humanity. The idea took off in the 19th century, when eccentric scientists and spiritual writers started speculating about a hidden inner world. The name Agartha first appeared in 1886 in the writings of French author Alexandre Saint-Yves d'Alvedre, who mixed esotericism, politics, and spirituality. Later, writers and movements like Theosophy blended Agartha with Eastern mysticism, especially Buddhist legends like Shambhala. But none of this has any scientific backing. The Earth isn't hollow. We have seismographs, geological studies, satellite data. Everything says our planet is made of solid and molten layers, not habitable tunnels. And yet, Agartha stuck around. During World War II, rumors claimed the Nazis were searching for polar entrances to the hollow Earth. Later, wild theories suggested Admiral Richard Byrd flew over a polar opening and saw beings from within, an event that never happened. Agartha became a theme in comics, documentaries, and video games. In some versions, the Agarthans are even aliens because, hey, if we can't find them above, maybe they're right beneath our feet. It's one of the wildest legends out there, and honestly, one of the most symbolic. The Kingdom of Prester John. In the Middle Ages, while crusades raged in the Middle East, a spark of hope spread through Europe. Somewhere far away, there was a legendary Christian kingdom ruled by an immortal priest-king, blessed with endless riches, mythical creatures, and a mighty army ready to help Christendom. This was Prester John. The story started with a mysterious letter supposedly sent by the king himself to the Pope and the Byzantine emperor in the 12th century. In it, Prester John described a paradise-like empire with the fountain of youth, miraculous cures, and 72 peaceful kingdoms. The letter was a sensation. It was copied, translated, and spread all over Europe. People really believed Prester John was out there. At first, they thought his kingdom was in India. When that didn't work out, they moved it to Central Asia, then Ethiopia. With every disappointment, the location changed, but the belief stayed strong. The obsession was real. Countries like Portugal and Spain even funded expeditions to find him. The age of discovery was partly fueled by the dream of finding Prester John. But of course, nothing was ever found. No golden city, no priest king, nothing. It was all myth, a mix of rumors and misunderstandings. Some parts of the legend were probably inspired by real Christian kingdoms, like Ethiopia, but they had nothing to do with Prester John. Still, explorers kept searching because people needed to believe there was someone out there fighting for the same God. Prester John never showed up, but for centuries, he stood as a symbol of hope and faith, and proof that humans are really good at turning longing into geography. Hy-Brasil. For centuries, sailors in the North Atlantic talked about a mysterious island glowing on the horizon just west of Ireland. It showed up on old maps, had a marked location, and according to legend, you could only see it once every 7 years. Then it would vanish like a ghost. Its name? Hy-Brasil. And no, it's got nothing to do with the country in South America. The name comes from the Celtic word Brasil, which might mean the exalted one, or the high king. But honestly, the name isn't the important part. What matters is this: the island never existed, not once. And yet, it was drawn on maps for over 500 years. Hy-Brasil first appeared in the 14th century, usually as a small, perfectly round island split by a river. Explorers actually set out to find it. John Cabot, for example, left England in the 15th century hoping to stumble upon Hy-Brasil, and instead, he found what we now call Canada. So, in a weird twist, an island that never existed might have helped lead to the rediscovery of North America. Why did so many people believe? There were reports of sightings, sea fog, optical illusions, anything to keep the myth alive. Some said Hy-Brasil was a hidden paradise, home to wise beings. Others thought it was a Celtic Atlantis, but no one ever set foot on it. By the 19th century, Hy-Brasil disappeared from maps. Scientists had mapped the region, and surprise, there was no island. Still, the legend refused to die. In UFO lore, some even say Hy-Brasil is a cloaked alien base, and in fantasy fiction, it still pops up as a magical land that slips through the cracks of reality. The Mountains of Kong. For over a century, just about every European atlas confidently showed a massive mountain range stretching across West Africa. It even had a name: the Mountains of Kong. The problem? They never existed. It all started in the late 18th century when British cartographer James Rennell tried to map the source of the Niger River. Relying on second-hand stories and a lot of guesswork, he figured there must be a mountain range there. And since no one had been there to prove otherwise, he just drew it in. Soon, other maps copied the idea, and as those maps gained authority, fiction turned into fact. By the 19th century, almost every map of Africa included the Mountains of Kong. Explorers relied on those maps, expecting to find a huge mountain range that wasn't there. The myth finally unraveled in the late 1800s when expeditions crossed the area and found no such range, just plateaus and scattered hills. In 1889, French explorer Louis-Gustave Binger officially declared the Mountains of Kong a fabrication. And just like that, they quietly vanished from maps. But the story was never forgotten. The Mountains of Kong became a textbook example of how speculation can turn into fact, a reminder that not everything printed on a map is real. Lamoria and Moo. Before satellites and tectonic models, the ocean floor was a blank canvas, perfect for projecting everything science couldn't explain. That's how we got two of the strangest lost continents, Lamoria and Moo. In 1864, zoologist Philip Sclater noticed lemur fossils in both India and Madagascar, but not in Africa or the Middle East. How could that be? His answer: maybe there was once a massive landmass connecting those regions, now lost beneath the Indian Ocean. He called it Lamoria. The theory caught on. If it explained lemur migration, why not use it to explain other mysterious links? Then came the occult twist. Writers like Helena Blavatsky and James Churchward added layers of mysticism, ancient civilizations, telepathic beings, lost wisdom, and of course, another mythical land, Moo, supposedly the original cradle of humanity in the Pacific. These ideas took hold in early 20th century pop culture and spiritual movements, but then geology advanced and reality hit. The theory of continental drift showed that continents don't just sink into the sea. Modern ocean mapping confirmed it. There's no sunken continent where Lamoria or Moo were supposed to be. Even so, the legends never fully disappeared. The Kingdom of Sagune. In the early days of French colonization in the Americas, a rumor swept through sailors, nobles, and even the royal court. Somewhere in the north of New France, what we now call Canada, there was a hidden kingdom overflowing with silver, gold, and precious gems, a land as rich as the Aztecs or the Incas. This was Sagune. The man who spread the tale was Jacques Cartier, a French explorer who arrived in Quebec in 1535. He met the indigenous chief Donnacona, who spoke of a distant people, light-skinned, living far to the north in lands rich with precious metals. To Cartier, it sounded like a northern El Dorado. When Donnacona was taken to France, he repeated the story to the king, fueling the fascination. The crown even planned expeditions to find Sagune. If the Spanish had their treasure empires, why couldn't the French? But reality hit soon enough. None of the expeditions found anything. No mines, no cities, no advanced civilization. Most likely, Donnacona was trying to impress or mislead his European visitors. Some historians think he was talking about northern tribes with access to copper, or maybe sharing confused memories of Viking explorers. Either way, Sagune was never found. Still, the name lives on. Today, the Saguenay River region still echoes the legend, a legend that helped shape Canadian history and fueled French ambition. Saguenay proves that golden myths don't just live in jungles. Sometimes, the promise of riches gleams in the ice, only to vanish into the fog. So, which of these mythical places do you wish actually existed? Or perhaps you know of another historical myth that deserves a mention? Let me know in the comments. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.